About a year ago, I did a video on methane. And as part of that, I talked about how it was responsible for 30% of global warming, and beef cattle were the source of about 27% of the methane. And that per kilogram, beef had by far the most global warming impact of all foods. Since that time, I've cut my beef consumption from what was a fairly low level to about 4 times a year. Other than that, I haven't made any changes to my diet due to my concern about climate change. When I saw the video, War on Steak, Climate Hysteria, Fake Meat, and the Push to Change Your Diet on John Stossel's channel, I thought it would be a good time to revisit the issue and focus on reducing beef consumption as an action we can all do. So today on Decarbonize, we're going to talk about beef. The video is hosted by Linnea Lueken of the Heartland Institute, who was a petroleum engineer before turning over to her current pursuit as an anti-climate change action campaigner. So let's look at some of the claims in this video.
Have you heard your steak is killing the planet?
It's the worst thing we eat when it comes to global warming. This is beef.
Activists say our taste for meat, especially beef, is killing the planet.
This is true. The chart shows the global warming potential of different foods, and beef cattle are much higher than any other. About 8% of climate change is traced to just beef cattle.
Bill Gates suggested that the world needs to genetically modify cows to
not be so much a source of methane emissions.
In addition to genetically modifying cows, there are experiments with their diet to reduce the amount of methane cattle belch. But for now, this is all just research. The only way to reduce the impact of cattle is to have fewer of them, and that means eating less beef.
Methane is a greenhouse gas. Cows produce it in their stomachs when digesting their food. That's why activists are so focused on cattle.
Less meat, less heat.
Arnold Schwarzenegger has gone vegan for this reason, and he's eager to tell us about it.
Livestock creates more pollution than all the transportation combined.
It's not just about the climate. A veggie or vegan diet requires less water, land, fertilizer, and just about every input. But for all of these things, beef stands out as much worse than anything else. Much of the video is Linnea talking with
Greg Wrightstone leads the CO2 Coalition, an organization that challenges alarmist narratives with science.
Greg has a master's degree in geology and, like Linnea, spent most of his career in the oil and gas industry.
The life cycle of methane is just 11 years. Any methane that's emitted today will be gone by the year 2036.
11 years is the average span of methane in the atmosphere. Half will be gone in about 10 years, but 1/4 will still be around after 19 years.
But the United Nations says that methane is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide.
It is 30 times, not 80.
Methane has a global warming potential over a century, 30 times that of methane, because CO2 lasts much longer in the atmosphere. But the methane in the atmosphere warms the climate 80 times as much as CO2. Since methane lasts a decade or two rather than over a century like CO2, if you average over the lifespan of any molecule of CO2 or methane, the difference is a factor of 30.
CO2 population in the atmosphere is 300 times as much as methane.
Actually, 220 times as much.
So that means that methane's warming potential itself is actually 10% of that of CO2.
If you do the math correctly, it's 30%, not 10%. I'm guessing he's incorrectly using the factor of 30 for the current atmospheric concentration rather than the appropriate factor of 80.
Scientists working with his organization argue that methane is not the villain it's made out to be.
We're going to see 0.05 degrees Celsius warming in the next 50 years from methane. Now, that's an extremely small number that you can't even measure.
I was unable to find the 2025 paper with the authors mentioned in the video, but there is a 2026 page on their website titled Livestock, Methane, and Climate with some of the same authors. So I'll assume that's the work they're referring to. This is not a peer-reviewed paper, it's just a web page on their website. I'll post the link below. I found several problems with their work. First, they use the methane emissions of cattle at 70 kilograms per year, which is the bottom of the range of emissions. A more accurate value would be around 100 kilograms a year. That explains part of the discrepancy. Every source that I found had 28% of the man-made methane comes from cattle, not the 17% they quote. The other issue is more fundamental. Their approach to calculate the warming is useful if they were teaching a climate modeling class for undergraduates, and it was the first week of class. It's a simplistic model that covers some of the basic concepts, but actual atmospheric models are much more complicated than their analysis. For instance, their model doesn't include atmospheric water vapor, which is important.
You're just a science denier.
Well, that's not only wrong, it's quite insulting to me and my other scientists. What we're doing is trying to bring the scientific method into the climate change debate.
If they aren't science deniers purposely spreading misinformation, how do you explain their sloppy, amateurish analysis, them getting simple things wrong like the methane emissions per cow, or that they seem confused by the global warming potential of methane? If you have a better term you think applies to them, please put it in the comments.
He says that's largely been missing from the alarmist science that gets publicized. How could these scientists be so wrong?
The fundamental element of the scientific method is the falsification of theory with data. What they're doing is not scientific. They're not providing a model that better explains the data. They're just throwing out some formulas that will confuse people who don't know what a climate model looks like. No data was presented at all, much less a model that better explains the data than the models presented by climate scientists.
A lot of the experts, particularly at the universities, only get their funding if they toe the company line on climate change.
This is rich, considering that both Linnea and Greg have spent their entire careers being paid by the oil and gas industry. Neither the Heartland Institute or the CO2 Coalition disclose their donors, but given the work they're doing, it's not hard to guess.
Many activists just want people to stop eating meat entirely.
You can have veggie burgers. You can have burgers made of mushrooms. To me, the planet is paramount.
She also interviewed a vegan activist.
Do you really think that Americans are going to be ready to give up their hamburgers?
So it's going to cause in these minor cultural disruptions.
Well, that's a pretty hard sell, isn't it?
I think she's trying to make the point that environmentalists are asking you to do something radical, like become a vegan, so you should do nothing.
It's a hard sell, I understand. But I know that nature cannot be argued with.
She also interviewed a cattle rancher who wants people to keep eating beef. He mainly trashed fake meat, and I'm also not a fan of it. I have turkey burgers and grilled chicken and salmon. I love a lentil stew or a stir fry. When I go to Dublin, there's an amazing falafel place that I always go to. When we go out for a special meal, I'll probably have the lamb. The rare times that I do eat beef, it's because I'm at someone's house or an event and that's what's being served. But it's pretty rare that I find myself without an option that's appetizing. So should you give up beef? That's your call. But it's my job to make sure you're accurately informed of the impact of your decision. Should we all be vegetarians? I haven't made that jump yet, but I'm what my wife calls a Reducetarian, eating less and less meat. And maybe someday I'll make the jump to becoming a vegetarian. What you do is your choice, but make it an informed choice. If you think I got something wrong or just want to share your thoughts, a comment is always appreciated, as is a like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a pint or YouTube thanks. Or you can watch more of my videos where I debunk somebody else's videos on YouTube. And please share this video with anyone you know who eats a lot of beef.